My job is to help you fit training around your life versus you fit your life around training. How do we take the time you have and make it the most effective and impactful as we can while still keeping it fun? It's like, okay, if we can get on the bike 3 times this week, then let's make it count.
Welcome to All Bodies on Bikes, the podcast, where all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides are celebrated.
All Bodies on Bikes is a movement to create and foster a radically inclusive bike community. So join your hosts, I'm Ellen.
And I'm Marley.
As we explore the complexities of the biking world. Help us break down barriers and create the world that we want to see.
Come along for the ride. All right, welcome back to the All Bodies on Bikes podcast. You've got just me, Marley Blonsky, as your host today, and we have a really special guest. We are doing a series about Mid-South and thought it would be appropriate and fun to bring on the coach that has been working with the All Bodies on Bikes gravel team. So today on the show, joining us, we've got Coach Dave Schell. All Bodies on Bikes for the last 5 years has put together a team of non-traditional athletes to go to a race together and give it their all. We started this in Steamboat Gravel in 2022 after I went by myself in 2021 and realized how much more powerful the experience could be with community. We did 3 years at Steamboat Gravel, and then last year we did Mid-South Gravel. I don't know if y'all remember talking about that, but it was the year that things didn't quite go to plan. There was a massive wildfire and the race ended up not happening. But we are hoping for better weather. Exactly. Better everything this year. And we've been working with Coach Dave for the last 2 years. So before we get into it, Dave, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I am a cycling coach based just outside of Boulder, Colorado. I've been coaching since 2010, so going on 16 years now. And I got into it because I had started training for something and really had no idea what I was doing. And I was just kind of like training really hard and running myself into the ground. And then I realized, like, once I learned the quote unquote right way to train, that it was like a lot more enjoyable, and I started to like improve and stuff. And so I wanted to pass that along to other people so they could experience the same thing. And so, yeah, I coach everybody from beginners, like people who don't own a bike yet, to pros. And a big part of it is just helping to demystify the training and make it enjoyable.
I am so excited to dig into this because, as I've talked about on the show before, and I think we've talked about, I'm notorious for not training. I ride for joy, and I just kind of show up at the start line, and things go as they go. However, I realized last year when I actually did a training program that I feel a whole lot better during the event. Right? You would think. And after 10 years of riding my bike, I'm starting to realize, like, oh, maybe planning and training is a very good thing. So that's what we're here to talk to you about today. So you mentioned that you work with all levels of folks from beginner to pro, but can you kind of just like break down, what does a cycling coach do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, I think, at least from my perspective, I think a lot of people think that it's just about workouts and it's just about a training plan. And I tell people when I first get on the phone with them or when I'm talking to them that, like, the workouts are such a small piece of it. Like, you can Google, you can do AI, you can have ChatGPT create a plan. And I think my job as a coach is really about like stress management, both on and off the bike, and then helping to identify limiters that prevent you from being consistent. Because in my experience, consistency is probably the most important thing. And so what is it in your life, whether it's, work or stress or poor sleep habits or, things like that, like what's preventing you from being consistent, and how can we mitigate that so that we can help you be successful and enjoy it? And like you said, so much of it, like I think people miss this, is like, it's more enjoyable doing a long, hard event if you're prepared for it. And so like mitigating all the risk,
Exactly. So when you say figuring out the workouts is one part of it, but then all the other elements that go along, what does that look like? Is that weekly calls with your client? What is the structure? I genuinely have no idea.
Different coaches do it differently, but I'm very big on communication. Like, I think that's the most important piece of coaching is we're talking almost daily through workout comments. So we use Training Peaks with the team. And so that's like this interactive calendar where I can put a workout in there. They go out and do the workout, then they upload it, then they leave a comment. I look at it, I leave a comment back, and we'll have communication back and forth there. And a lot of times what I find, and I would say most of the time, like the limiters aren't on the bike. It's little things outside of that. And it could be fueling your rides. So what are you eating before, during, and after your rides? The hydration. It could be equipment. So looping your chain, having the right tire pressure, like all these things. And so that like comes out over time in those conversations.
That makes so much sense. So, if I'm training with you and I'm like, oh my God, I'm, 15 minutes in my ride every time I just feel so lethargic or tired, you would dig into that and say, okay, well, what are you eating? Are you sleeping? Those sorts of things?
Exactly. And that's just it. And I think a big reason I started coaching also, and especially now, like there's so much information out there. There's so many podcasts, there's so many blogs, there's so many Instagram stories, and so it's just like all this information, and it gets so overwhelming, and it's like, what do you believe? And so it's like, I want to help like simplify it, and like, what can we focus on? And usually it's like 2 to 3 things. Like, how can we focus on like the basics and help you be successful? And so exactly, like when people are reporting, I'm bonking, my legs are feeling like this is what my breathing's doing. We kind of dig into that and figure out why and how can we address that.
That makes a lot of sense. So I guess, zooming out a little bit, we already talked about you work with athletes of all levels, but how do I know if like I'm qualified to work with a coach? If I just want to like do an event, but I don't have a lot of experience, is that something where I should look into getting a coach? Or like, how does somebody decide that they need coaching services?
I think that's another big kind of I don't want to call it a myth, but interpretation or something. Yeah, misconception. There we go. Is that coaching is only for pro athletes or for people that are looking to win races and things like that. And it's like the majority of athletes I work with are not winning races. And it's really about competing against yourself and being the best version of yourself. And so anybody can benefit from it. And like, I think my job and what I talk to people about most often is like, my job is to help you fit training around your life versus you fit your life around training. And so like, how do we take the time you have and make it the most effective and impactful as we can while still keeping it fun? I mean, that's the other thing we talk about all the time is like, most of us are not getting paid to do this. And so if it starts feeling like a job and a chore, like maybe it's time to reevaluate.
That makes sense. So, Mid-South is coming up in a little over 2 months, and I don't live in Bentonville anymore. When I lived in Bentonville, I could ride gravel all the time, and I was training with this awesome group of women. And admittedly, my training has fallen off the horse a little bit. So I'm signed up for the 50. I did a 20-mile ride yesterday and felt pretty good. But, if there's other folks that are in the same boat where they're like signed up for an event, is it too late to start? Or what can people start doing now if their event is coming up soon?
Absolutely. I'll try to keep this to the point and not go on too many tangents here, but I think there's a lot of things to consider. And so like using you as an example, you've done this before. You know what you're in for, right? You've done long, hard rides. You've been out there. You've had the dark moments and things like that. So it's like, you know what you're in for, and it's not going to be a big surprise. So if it was somebody who it's the first time they're doing a big event, whether we're talking 50 miles or 100 miles, I think just getting an idea or talking to people to get an idea of like what's going to happen over the course of that so that you're prepared for it. And then I would say the second thing is depending on where you're at. So typically when we're working with somebody and let's say we have 3 to 6 months to train, we're going to train as much as we can and get to the highest fitness we can. And then going into the event, we'll rest up so that they're fresher and more rested, right? But now we're 8 weeks out. And so we don't have all that time. And so now I'd focus more on like building up to that distance. So if we're saying the 50 miles, this week aim for 10 miles, next week aim for 15 miles, next week aim for 20, and just try to build into it rather than like, oh, I'm going to go and it's going to be my best performance ever, but more like I'm building up and then this is going to cap off my training over the next week.
That makes so much sense. And it makes it less intimidating because I think there's a lot of folks who, they registered for an event and they've got these grand ambitions that they're going to train and they're going to get in shape, and then life gets in the way. all the time, all the time. So,
Yeah.
do you have other suggestions for ways to incorporate training into your daily life?
This is something I talk about with athletes all the time. And I think just us as humans, we have a bad habit of we're always looking ahead and thinking about how far we have to go and things we haven't done and all these things. But like one, taking a step and just looking back and thinking about the things you have accomplished and you have done and like being grateful for that, right? Like giving yourself credit for the things you've done. And then the other piece is like perfection over progress, right? Like we want to do everything perfect. And so it's like as we miss workouts or we have to cut it short, then we start getting down on ourselves and it becomes overwhelming. But rather just like, I'm going to get something in. If you can't ride, then go for a 20-minute hike or walk the stairs or do something, just something active, right? Just it's going to be better than nothing. And then again, like it doesn't have to be perfect. And so if we're talking about strength training, it's like throughout the day, just like stop and do like some air squats or something like that and break it up throughout the day. Every time you like stand up from your desk or something, do something. And over the course of the day, that will be better than nothing.
I used to do 10 squats every time I'd go to the bathroom, and I've gotten out of the habit, but this reminds me that was kind of a fun way to just incorporate some more squats into my life.
Exactly. And it adds up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been working with the All Bodies on Bikes team this year and last year. Maybe let's talk about Beth. The podcast audience is very familiar with Beth. She's been on a couple times. She was our DFL winner a couple years ago, but I know you've worked with her over the years. And I understand you guys aren't working together anymore, but when you're working with somebody like that, who's a busy mom, but also has these really big ambitions, what are the most important things that you're stressing to her?
Absolutely. And again, for me, it always comes back to like consistency. And so like one of my coaching philosophies is keep it simple, keep it fun. Consistency is king. And so again, like what we were just talking about, we can get overwhelmed if it's like, oh, we need to be doing these really complicated workouts and it needs to be these types of intervals and all these things. And then we end up doing none of it because it just feels like too much. And so rather than that, it's like, okay, if we can get on the bike 3 times this week, then like, let's make it count. And if it's only an hour, great. But like, let's make that count. And so really just thinking about like, when are those optimal times to do it? And it's not just time wise, but also energy and like being like motivated to do it. And so finding like when are those peak times that we can always train. And then anything else on top of that is kind of gravy, it's bonus.
That makes sense. Have you ever had an athlete come to you and say, I have an ambition to do X event? Have you ever had to like have a reality check with them and say, I don't think this is going to be possible?
Absolutely. And it's not even, I would like put an asterisk there where it's like, maybe it's not possible this year.
Okay.
Right. And so it's like, and that's why I mentioned a little while ago about like with you, it's like if you had never done a 50-mile ride and this was your first time and you hadn't trained, it's like, maybe there's shorter options available this year, but it's like I take into account their training history, the types of things they've done in the past and how much time they have to train. And so if somebody wanted to do like 200-mile unbound and they only have like 4 hours a week to train or something, it's like, okay, like maybe we set that for like another goal, like a few years down the road. But yeah, definitely we have to have those reality checks every now and then. But yeah, I just want to point out, like, it's not about doubting an athlete's ability or anything like that. It's just like really like being realistic with the time we have to train and how much time before the event and what you've done in the past and setting goals appropriately.
I love that. I get questions from folks who's like, I'm registered for the Seattle to Portland and I've never ridden more than 10 miles. And I want to say like, well, yes, you can do it. Is it going to be enjoyable or fun? Probably not. I imagine it's the same sort of thing where it's like, you just gotta, those reality checks. And I think probably I would imagine revisiting the person's goals of like, well, why do you want to do this 200? Like, why do you want to do this specific event? Is there something else we can substitute before, you go out there and hurt yourself?
I'm glad you brought that up because goals are so important, right? It's like for a lot of people, it's to finish. And so to go back and use Beth as an example, that's a conversation we had a few times where it's like she'd already finished some of the hard things, right? Like she did Mid-South, she was DFL, and it's like, okay, like it's time to graduate now. You can finish these things. So now how do you push yourself a bit more? Like, can you do it faster? Can you do it longer? And that's really like, for me, I feel like that's what endurance sport is about, is like pushing our limits, seeing what we're capable of, and, like surprising yourself and doing things you never thought you could do.
Can you share any stories, without giving away personal details if you don't want to, but of some athletes that you've coached and maybe where they started and what they were able to achieve?
Yeah, for me as a coach, that's one of the most gratifying things. And like I said, so I'll just give a quick story. Like I said, I started training and I like had set a goal for running a 10K, and I thought it was going to be impossible to run this 10K. And I kept plugging away, and then I did it 1 year. And then like one time I was picking up a packet, and so it's the Boulder, which is like 50,000 people here in Boulder. It's a 10K. And they separate you in waves based on how fast you're going to finish. And so like I started, and it's all by letter. And so the first wave is A, the second is AA, and so on. I started in like M or something. So I was like way back there with like the walkers and the strollers
And
and
the
everything else.
strollers. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And so like I went to pick up a packet, and there's a guy picking up his A wave packet. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe that. How could anybody run that fast? That's impossible. And, and then like fast forward 3 years, I kept running and just kept at it. And all of a sudden, like I finished Boulder, and I looked up at the screen, and I was like, I had made the A wave, and I just like broke down in tears because it was something that I thought there was never in a million years I could do. And so it was like that experience that I wanted to like pass on to athletes. And so exactly, it's like, I think that's like the most gratifying thing, is where when somebody starts somewhere and they think their goal is just to finish this one thing or something like that, and then over time to see them accomplish bigger and bigger things is like, it's like being a proud parent. It's like so fun to share in that with them. And so one guy, he signed up for Leadville, which is a 105-mile mountain bike race at 10,000 feet. He didn't own a bike. He lived in Texas.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is going to be great. And so, but he did it. It's like we worked towards it, and it like we had 1 year, and he ended up doing it. And like, so that was like super awesome. There's another athlete that I coached that was on From the Ground Up. And
Can you tell us about From the Ground Up?
Yeah, so From the Ground Up, and I'm not sure what they're doing now, but it's like they would typically take 3 athletes that, again, maybe didn't own a bike or like just kind of like rode recreationally, and then they would try to train them through Leadville. They did Leadville a couple times, I think Steamboat once, and now I think they're back at Leadville. But one of my athletes got in, and we knew, so this is one of those like reality conversations we have to have, and it's like, it's going to be a stretch. Like it's going to be a big stretch. And so for her is like I might get emotional talking about this, but
That's
like
okay.
our goal, we're like, okay, like you ignore the race, ignore the 105 miles. Your goal is to get through the first 40 miles before the cutoff, because those cutoffs are very strict there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't make it. And so she did. She was the last one through the first Twin Lakes cutoff. And like, if you watch the video, it was season 3, I think, like everybody's in tears. Like Twin Lakes, if you've ever watched the videos of Leadville or anything, it's like shoulder to shoulder. There's so many people. It's such a big party. And so like all those people are just losing their minds as she comes through the last one, and she did it. And so like there's video of me like running next to her, and she's like, I don't think I can go on. And it's like, it doesn't matter, just go at this point, whatever you have, but it's like, that was the goal. And so to see her accomplish that was amazing. And anything beyond that was just like bonus,
Oh, I love that. I actually have chills hearing you talk about it.
I know, me too. I'm like,
I've been there. When I did my first 100 at Unbound, they still had a cutoff time. And so I was racing the clock to make that cutoff. And that was my only goal as well, was to make that cutoff. And then the rest of the day I was like, okay, this is gravy. I already did the hard part. Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Did she end up finishing the whole race?
She didn't. And she knew, like, she was going up Columbine, which is the really hard climb right in the middle. And she knew she wasn't going to make it, but she could have just turned around. But she's like, no, screw that. Like, I am going to finish this climb. I know I'm going to get pulled when I come back down, but I don't care. I'm going to finish this. And so it's like, yeah, it's bittersweet, but it's like, and like, of course she wanted to finish it, but
yeah,
it's great
still,
that we at least did the first,
Yeah. And that's a huge accomplishment. And I love that, you had that realistic conversation with her, because I think a lot of folks don't have that realistic conversation either with somebody else or with themselves, and they kind of set themselves up for failure. And it's like, let's be realistic about where we're at, what our bodies are capable of, what our brains, well, I think our brains are capable of anything if you've got the right mindset. But yeah, I really like that. Can you talk about some of like the common pitfalls that folks fall into when they're training, and maybe strategies that you employ to get them out of those pitfalls?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest pitfalls is just nutrition slash food. And this is one of those things that there's so much conflicting information on, and either and I've been doing this long enough that I like see this pendulum go back and forth, and same with training. But it's like at one point everybody was doing fasted rides, and now everybody wants to fuel like 100 grams of carbs per hour, which is like 400 calories per hour, which is a lot. And so it's like, I think that food becomes so complicated that we end up with paralysis by analysis, or analysis paralysis, whatever that saying is. But yeah, I think just fueling, right? Like at the end of the day, our bodies need energy, and we need to eat to give it fuel for the work we're doing. And so just kind of simplifying that. And I think we've kind of talked about this on some of the team calls. Like, there can be really complicated nutrition plans. And I encourage people, it's like, just, you need to do something every 15 minutes. So you should either be drinking or eating every 15 minutes. And that way, when you look down at your bike computer, if it's on the quarter hour, you're doing something, so that when you get later into the ride and you're brain dead, you're not trying to do math and you're not trying to remember what it's time to eat. You just know you need to do something and stay ahead of that. The other thing is kind of burning the candle at both ends, and like doing workouts really late and then sacrificing sleep. I always say that like becomes counterproductive, because if you're not recovering, then you're not adapting, and then it's like you're not getting the benefit from that workout. And so I really emphasize resting and taking care of your body. And then motivation and burnout, I think, is one of the biggest things, where we get really excited if we've signed up for something a year out. We want to start training today and we're really motivated. And sometimes I have to like pull people, rein them in a little bit and be like, oh, let's take it easy. And we take mental breaks throughout the year. So like, I'll take a mid-season break and just be like, okay, just do whatever you want. Like, take a week, go do fun things off the bike for like a mental refresh. Because the last thing I want is somebody to be burned out and not wanting to ride their bike 3 months away from their big event. And so,
that makes sense.
Taking that into account, because like, we're not machines, and we have a lot of shit going on all the time.
And a lot of shit going on in the world. That is so true. Back to food. What are some of your favorite riding food fuels?
I am so simple, and I've been doing this for years. And it's like, I just do Cliff Blocks and Scratch. And the reason I do Cliff Blocks is because I don't have to think about it. If I'm going out for a 3-hour ride, then I grab 3 sleeves of Cliff Blocks. I've done an Ironman on nothing but Cliff Blocks and Scratch. And so it's just easy for me to know that I'm going to eat 1 sleeve per hour. So I take 3 blocks every 30 minutes. I think gummy bears are great. The Haribo ones can be kind of hard to chew.
They're so hard to chew. Albanese are the superior gummy bear for sure.
I will try those ones then for sure. And then Nerd Clusters can be good. I think ultimately we just need sugar. And I think where some people can overcomplicate it. I have an athlete that wants to eat like cheese crackers and sausages and like all these things. And it's like, okay, but when we're exercising, our body needs quick fuel. And so just like thinking about like sugary things that are going to like break down quickly. Even like Coke is great. Coke is magical. But
Coke is magical.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola.
So just things like
other
that.
Kind
of Coca-Cola. Let's stick to Coca-Cola. Yeah.
Yes. Are you I don't know how to phrase this, but protein is everywhere. There's protein water, there's protein candy, there's
I just saw protein Pop-Tarts, and I about threw my computer.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Can you talk to us about protein and training and working out and what we should be keeping in mind for that?
Absolutely. And so I'll preface this by saying I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist, but I went to culinary school and had to take nutrition classes, and I try to stay up on the latest science and stuff like that. So again, this is I think diet gets so complicated. And so this is how I talk to my athletes about it. Protein is our anchor, And it really shouldn't vary from day to day. And our body needs protein because it's kind of the building blocks. And so I tell people to aim for 20 to 30 grams every 3 to 4 hours. And so, like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Just aim for 20 to 30 grams every 3 to 4 hours. And the way your body uses protein, my understanding of it, is it just kind of like floats around. And when your body needs it, it grabs it and uses it to rebuild things. Carbs, on the other hand, that's our fuel. And that can fluctuate from day to day. So if it's a rest day, you eat less carbs. If it's a training day, you eat more carbs. And again, it doesn't have to be like crazy amounts, like just thinking about it, like how much did I ride today? Like how big is my ride tomorrow? And thinking about like storing that up. And then fat is just kind of like fluctuates again with protein and stuff like that. And so that shouldn't be that big of a focus either. So just like, I heard a dietitian say this recently, and I thought it was such good advice. It's like, rather than like getting so hung up on macronutrients and stuff, like just focus on eating. Like just focus on eating every 3 to 4 hours, right? Like that's the bigger thing. And like I find myself standing in front of the fridge being like, oh, I can't have that. Oh, I can't have that. I can't, because I'm like trying to break it down to like macronutrients. And it's like,
Interesting.
just
Yeah.
eat food. Just eat food. And your body, like as long as it's varied and you're eating a little bit of everything, your body will figure it out.
Yeah. I had like the most intense craving the other day for like a juicy orange. And I thankfully had one in my house. And when I ate it, I realized, oh my God, this is satisfying like the taste that I was
Yeah.
looking for, like something like that citrusy. But I also realized I was really thirsty. So I was like craving that hydration from it. And I drank some water as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
eating can be so interesting.
Well, and that's a huge thing, right? It's like yesterday I did a bigger ride, like bigger-ish ride, and I got home and I'm like, I just wanted salt. Like I'd had all the sugar and it's like I was just craving salt. And so like pretty soon I just had like a bag of tortilla chips and I'm just like licking the salt off, like trying to get as
Yeah.
much salt as I can, which is telling me like I'm probably dehydrated. I probably lost sodium. So our bodies are pretty good if we slow down and like
If we
listen to
actually
them.
listen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, are you training for anything in particular right now?
I just got back into Leadville for this next year. So I did it last year for the first time, and I missed the sub 9 by 20 minutes because I had a couple flats. So I had to like go back for redemption. I don't know if I could put a plug in here so I got a charity spot this year. And so
Please do put a plug in. Yeah.
oh, awesome. So yeah, I'm raising money for the Colorado High School Mountain Bike League. And so I'm racing for them this year. And so, yeah, I'm excited to go back. That happens in August. And so I'll do some little events along the way to kind of prepare for that as well.
Very cool. Well, we'll get a link from you and put that in the show notes. I guess in closing, what parting words of wisdom would you give to folks who are potentially training for an event and looking for inspiration or advice?
Yeah, I think I probably way too many words of wisdom. I'm a sucker for quotes, but
That's okay.
I think the biggest thing, and this is probably the thing I think we opened this with our first call last year with the team, is like, it's about challenging ourselves. And so that challenge looks different for everybody. And we just talked about what I'm doing this year, right? So my challenge is Leadville. When it started, it was a 10K race, like 20 years ago or whatever. Find something that scares you a little bit. Because if you can have something on your calendar that scares you, whether it's a 10-mile ride or a 200-mile ride, that's going to get you out the door to train, right? And then you're capable of more than you think you are. And I think you kind of alluded to this, right? Like so much of it is mindset, and we can accomplish a lot if we just keep moving forward.
Yep.
And I think the last thing I'll say here is I love endurance sport because I feel like it's kind of a microcosm of life. It's like just dealing with hard shit, overcoming adversity. And as you do that and you like start to build confidence and you're like, man, I can do hard things, then everything else in life starts to get a little bit easier as well.
I love that. I love that. Are you currently accepting new coaching clients?
I am. And I think having a good relationship with the coach is super important. So I'm always like open to having a conversation, but I'm not the right coach for everybody. And if I'm not,
Sure.
I can always like recommend somebody else or recommend a different path. So.
Awesome. So if something Dave said sparks something for you and you're curious about working with a coach or want to work with Dave, where can folks get in touch with you or to find out more?
Yep, you can find me on Instagram at Kaizen Endurance, or you can find me online at kaizenendurance.coach. And I know it's confusing. It's not .com, it's .coach.
.coach. Do you remember I was saying when we were kids, but .com was the only thing?
And now there's everything. You can get any dot.
You can do .bike, .coach. So, and we will put the links to that in the show notes. We owe you a huge thank you for working with our Mid-South gravel teams. I know the folks are working really hard, and I just met a couple of them yesterday, and they did great, and they're probably going to be in better shape than the mentors. But we really, really appreciate working with you and are just so grateful that you appreciate bodies of all shapes and sizes and goals and are willing to work with us.
Yeah, it's absolutely my pleasure. And I think one of the big things we've talked about in the past is like an athlete to me is somebody that has a goal and is training with a purpose. And so athletes look all different ways, right? And so it's like really the mindset is what it comes down to.
Nice. Well, thank you so much and good luck at Leadville.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.